Hey everybody, I am back from Scotland, and today I'm going to tell you all about my Shetland Wool Week experience. Hi, I'm Melanie, and you are watching Yarn Journeys. I am an avid knitter and spinner, and I live in Arlington, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. Welcome if you are new here, and welcome back if you are a returning viewer. Today's episode is the first of what I expect to be a 3-part series about my recent months-long trip to Scotland, which included going to Shetland Wool Week. My husband and I also traveled through the Highlands of Scotland, the Glencoe area, and the Isle of Skye, as well as Edinburgh, and I'll be sharing about that in future episodes. But today, we are talking about all things Shetland. I am going to share with you all the wonderful things I saw and did, as well as some of the goodies I brought home with me. And at the end of the episode, I will give you a progress update on some of my recent projects. If you're not familiar with it, Shetland Wool Week is a celebration of all things woolly. The sheep, the yarns, the beautiful stranded Fair Isle designs, the knitting culture, from the Shetland Islands of the UK. It typically takes place every year towards the end of September and beginning of October. I had first heard about Shetland Wool Week from Andrea of Fruity Knitting. She has gone to Shetland Wool Week at least twice, and on her podcast had featured many interviews with famous Shetland knitters like Hazel Tyndall, who is the fastest knitter in the world. So my curiosity was piqued. I also had noticed that every year on Ravelry, there would be a Fair Isle hat pattern that everybody was excited about knitting. And that is because the patron of a Shetland Wool Week, every year there's a different one, the patron designs a hat just for that year. So I had already come across Katie's Kep. This is my version in Kelborn Woolens Camper. I knit this one in 2021 before I went to Iceland as something to keep my head warm. This thing called Shetland Wool Week was in my head, and I was really curious about it and thought, maybe I will get some more information about it, and maybe one day I'll go. This past year in January, I went to Vogue Knitting Live and I bought a copy of this book, which is Grand Shetland Adventure Knits by Mary Jane Mucklestone and Gudrun Johnston. Gudrun is Shetland born, although she lives in the United States, and they both signed my copy, and I hope this is showing up in the video, but Gudrun signed it for Melanie. Shetland awaits. So that really planted a seed, like I'm supposed to go to Shetland. I need to go to Shetland. And this March, I just decided, yep, I'm going to Shetland, and the stars aligned such that I was able to make it happen, and my husband and I put together a whole Scotland adventure with the plan that first I would spend 10 to 11 days at Shetland Wool Week. I decided to go with a group tour. I went with Amy Detchen and Heather Black, who famously lead tours to the Shetland Islands, and in particular bring a group to Shetland Wool Week every year. I first heard about Amy Detchen, who is a knitting teacher extraordinaire. I first heard about Amy from watching Fruity Knitting. She was one of the people that Andrea interviewed at while Andrea was at Shetland Wool Week. And I thought, well, she seems like fun and she knows a lot of stuff. And then I took a couple classes with Amy through Vogue Knitting Live in person and online. And I just loved her spirit. I love people who have a ton of knowledge and are always excited, enthusiastic to share it with others as well as inspire them at the same time. And that is definitely Amy. She is warm, knowledgeable, and a heck of a ton of fun. I also knew that Shetland Wool Week is kind of complicated. It takes place in the islands, but it is not like a knitting festival that takes place on fairgrounds or a conference that takes place in a massive hotel like the Marriott Marquis in New York. No. Shetland Wool Week takes place throughout the Shetland Islands. So while a lot of things are in Lerwick, which is the largest town and the capital of the Shetland Islands, there are events on Burra and Unst and Walsey or Walsa, actually, that's how you're supposed to say it. So you kind of have to figure out how you're going to get around and how you're going to see all the things that you want to see. And by going with an organized group, I had hoped, and my hopes were realized, to have a little help organizing my time so that I was able to see and do as much as I wanted without getting a little nuts with figuring out logistics. Signing up for the events of Shetland Wool Week is a little bit like trying to get tickets for Hamilton. There's a digital box office and you have your program of events and classes in front of you and you wait in line digitally and you log in, you're waiting, watching the little numbers count down until it's your turn to get into the box office, and you try and get all the classes that you want to sign up for into your event, and then you hope that the system doesn't crash and you get to go to the things that you want to go to. And as it turned out, some of the things I wanted to sign up for were sold out within seconds. Others, but I had like a plan and priorities. So I got a lot of advice from Amy and Heather that they gave to the group as a whole to try and make sure that you could go to the events that you wanted. But of course, the most important thing is actually just being in Shetland, because the landscape is magical. There are very few trees. There are mountains and cliffs descending into turbulent oceans. It's very windy a lot of the time. The skies are full of moody clouds alternating with sunlight. I mean, if you have ever watched the Shetland murder mystery series, and I binge watched all of them before I headed to Shetland, the landscape that they record on the shows of Shetland, well, that's actually what it really looks like. it is amazingly beautiful. And just seeing those wide open, incredible skies and beaches and so forth, your spirit just feels inspired by being there. And well, there's sheep everywhere. So if you like sheep, and I do, there's, just driving around the bend, there's the happy sheep, and you just feel happy. I can't go through everything I did step by step. We would be here for 3 hours. So I am going to share with you as much as I can, not necessarily in chronological order. One of the favorite things I did was a tour to a croft where the croft owner, Marion, specializes in breeding Shetland sheepdogs, a particular kind of Shetland sheep, as well as Shetland ponies. This was a day full of adorableness. First of all, the sheep that Marion raises are what are called flecket sheep.
So you'll see that they're very small.
Yes.
The Shetland sheep is very small. Right, where they come?
They are full-bred Shetland sheep, but they have this, what I would call piebald pattern in their fleeces, all black and white. And Marion proudly shared with us how she breeds, particularly to continue along this color pattern. She also raises Shetland ponies and is a frequent prize winner when she shows her ponies. She raises smaller ponies, and they were so adorable. As someone who grew up loving horses and spending a lot of time in stables, I thought this was just a ton of fun. But really the thing that stole my heart were the Shetland sheepdogs, because I grew up with a Shetland sheepdog whom I absolutely loved and was my best friend until I was in college, and just seeing Shetland sheepdogs in Shetland, and they were all so cute and fluffy and remarkably friendly, was just so much fun. Our tour guide for this outing, Anita, took us all along the landscape in Shetland. We took a stop at the original cake fridge, very important, and that was really a special afternoon. Many of the Shetland events combine activities where you are both going to things in the landscape as well as heading to a croft or a woolly place, for lack of a better term. I did a tour where we went to Ulst, which is a very old archaeological site, dates back to the Stone Age, and the official archaeologist for the Shetland Islands Council gave us a tour. What was really kind of fun is that this site is right next to the airport. So you have, these remains of houses which date back to, 2000 BC, right next to, 21st century technology of planes coming into land at the Sunburg airport. That trip to Old Scatness also included a visit to Laxdale Croft, a farm that specializes in breeding 100% Shetland sheep. Let me explain. So there's Shetland sheep, and then there's Shetland, 100% Shetland sheep. There's all the sheep that are on Shetland, and then there are 100% Shetland breed sheep. There are a lot of crossbred sheep in Shetland. So that would be your Suffolk or, Scotland mainland breeds that are crossbred with the Shetland sheep to have a more marketable meat and wool sheep that is raised on the Shetland Islands. Then there's the 100% Shetland sheep, which are, can be traced back through their bloodlines to the original primitive breed Shetland sheep that have been on the island for centuries. Laxdale Croft specializes in raising 100% Shetland breed sheep.
So that's some of the offspring of this murret. But these ones were just put to the murret ram, but you see that's the colours comes out. Just because you put the murret at a colour, it doesn't mean you'll get that colour back. It's just over time, if you keep breeding pure colour, that you will eventually get. But so yeah, you get kind of light coloured ones coming out.
It was awesome to hear the owner of Laxdale Yarn going through how he breeds the sheep, how he decides which fleeces are going to head to the mill, and so on. And then we, of course, got to go shopping in their little yarn shop in their house to see what that fleece becomes, which is quite beautiful. And they also had some treats and tea for us there. Treats and tea is a theme of Shetland Wool Week. There's a lot of yummy baked goods in Shetland. A big event of this year's Shetland Wool Week was what the Doull family decided to call the Sheep House Social. The Doull family have been raising Shetland sheep for a long, long time. There were a number of events you could participate in. I did an archaeological walk where the official Shetland archaeologist took us to some Iron Age sites that happened to be on the Doull family property. They invited us back to their sort of, I guess you'd call it their sheep barn, where they had some of their lambs and rams and ewes on display so we could inspect the beautiful Shetland sheep. They also had their prize-winning fleeces on display. Members of the Doull family who are part of a local Up-Helly-Ah crew, Up-Helly-Ah being the Viking fire festival that happens every January. The crews all dress in Viking helmets and regalia, and so a couple of the Doull brothers had decided to wear their Up-Helly-Ah gear, which was kind of fun to take pictures of. What I also enjoyed seeing was Anne Doull's design board for the Islesburgh Toorie hat. So she had her swatches on display, the yarns she was playing with, and her inspiration. It's always fun to see how a designer works from thought to completed object. And there were also lots of yummy baked goods. Everyone was wearing their Islesburgh Toorie, and it was fun to walk around and see all the versions and colorways and things that people had done to make their Islesburgh Toorie special to them. A lot of Shetland Wool Week takes place in Lerwick, which I mentioned is the largest city of the Shetland Islands as well as its capital. And it is a very striking city. Most of it, at least the downtown, is on a hill going down to the harbor. A lot of the buildings are a couple centuries old. It does look like the buildings do on the Shetland Murder Mystery series. And, I did spend some time finding a Jimmy Perez house, as well as finding the building that was the police station in downtown Lerwick.
Many of the shops in downtown Lerwick put on displays in their windows to celebrate Wool Week with Fair Isle garments, or even this coffee shop that had treats that were knitted and crocheted.
By the way, if you are enjoying the video, please do give it a like and hit that thumbs up button. It will help people just like yourself find the video and enjoy it. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it a lot. One of the biggest events of Shetland Wool Week is, of course, the Welcome Night. This is when as many participants as can or who got tickets fits into one big room and all wear our Shetland Wool Week hat and take a big group photo. There's also speeches from the Shetland Wool Week organizers, and the Shetland Wool Week patrons are introduced. Lerwick also has the Shetland Museum and Archives, which is a two-story building that tells the story of the Shetland Islands. The Shetland Museum does a good job of explaining how civilization and the towns and the culture developed within Shetland, and I really enjoyed a tour I took that went through the development of the wool industry and the knitting industry within the Shetland Islands, and how the popularity of Fair Isle and Fair Isle designs really gained most of its footing in the early 20th century. There are lots of examples on display. I tried to soak it all in because I really enjoy color work and Fair Isle stranding, so it was very inspiring to go through the museum. The first floor of the museum had a special exhibition of pictures that a photographer took in the 1970s of Shetlanders wearing their Fair Isle sweaters. This was actually one of my favorite things that I saw in the Shetland Museum. You had these very, 1970s looking people wearing traditional Fair Isle garments. They also had some of the original Fair Isle garments on display on mannequins next to their photos. So that was particularly fun to see. And when I was there, there were a number of native Shetlanders who were going through and recognizing the people that they had grown up with in the photographs. I got a real kick out of it, and they did too, because they just were so excited to see these pictures. They pulled me over, a complete stranger, to say like, oh, that's my cousin, or I went to high school with that guy, or oh, I know that guy, he's from Walza and he made a lot of money in fishing. Of course, they were saying all these things in their delightful Shetland accent, which I can't hope to reproduce, but it did make me feel really special to be there. My favorite picture is this one of a guy who's got, this sort of reddish hair and big sideburns, and he's wearing a very fabulous all over zipper Fair Isle cardigan, and the original is still in existence, and they had that on display. I thought that was so much fun. I also went to Unst one day with Amy and Heather and the rest of my tour group, and we went to the Unst Heritage Center, where we saw beautiful examples of Unst Shetland lace. The island of Unst is particularly well known for the quality of its fine lace, and there were some beautiful examples on display. We also got to sit down and knit with some ladies from Unst who eagerly showed us how to knit with the famous Shetland knitting belt, and we got to talk knitting and yarn, and they were very welcoming and fun to be around.
We also paid a visit to the northernmost distillery in the UK, where you can get gin in a plastic bag.
I visited the Shetland Textile Archive, which in particular celebrates Shetland's knitting and weaving history. I got to take a look at even more examples of beautiful Fair Isle creations, and I even took a turn at putting in a few rows of the big long scarf that they encourage all visitors to the Shetland Textile Museum to knit on. And I did use the knitting belt. I took a class on how to design Shetland lace and how to knit it with Elizabeth Johnston, who is a famous Shetland knitting designer, as well as a former Shetland Wool Week patron. One of the last events I went to was really special. Amy and Heather made sure we got to the Burra Sunday tea. So every Sunday, many of the Shetland communities have a community tea where for a few pounds you can have a meal and some tea and chat with people in the community. The Sunday after Shetland Wool Week, the Burra community had a special tea to celebrate all the knitting history and knitting culture in the town, well, it's the island of Burra, actually. There were some examples of what one of the locals called Spencers, where, back in the days before heating was more centralized, and it is cold on Shetland, children used to wear these knitted singlets, I guess we'd call them, to help keep warm underneath the rest of their clothes.
Speaking of children, I got to meet twins Sandra and Grace Inkster, who are the twins on the sled in this picture. This Fair Isle sweater has a story. It is in fact the wearer's husband's sweater, which she had made into a cardigan after he passed because she just loved the sweater so much.
I really liked seeing one knitwear designer had the inspiration that she took from the local landscape in how she picked the colors for her designs. And, of course, there are also some sheep outside if you wanted to remember where all this lovely wool came from. I hope in my description of the events, I gave you somewhat of a flavor of what Shetland Wool Week is like. There are a lot of things to do and see. I think I participated in maybe less than a quarter of the things that one could do during Shetland Wool Week. I definitely hope to get back someday so that I can take another bite of that apple. There were so many things I wanted to do that I wasn't able to because I had decided to do something else. I'm going to head back to Shetland Wool Week someday for sure. So, what did I bring home with me? Quite a lot, actually. In fact, so much that I had to send it home through the Royal Mail to a friend so that when I got back from Scotland, it would be waiting for me. I did buy some yarn at Laxdale Croft. This is the colors I picked from Laxdale yarn. This one's called Barley. This one is Cardinal. Of course, you can tell that these were already knit from. While I was on Shetland, I finished the project I brought with me, and I bought a pattern at Laxdale Yarn to make these mitts. So this was my travel project throughout Scotland. I really love these kinds of mitts. They are knit with a cuff, and I'd never done anything like this before. You actually start knitting here, and then you flip them and knit in the other direction on the other side. Not sure if I am explaining that very well, but you know, very pleased with how these turned out. Of course, one of these I knit most of on the plain. I'm not sure which one it is, but I did notice that they came out slightly differently. So, note to self, when you are knitting on the plain, you may not always have the same tension and so forth as when you are not on a plain. I also made a visit to Jamison's. I decided that I wanted to make a all over Fair Isle cardigan. And what's kind of fun is that during Wool Week, there's so many people walking around in their cardigans and their pullovers. You can really get a sense of what many of the designs look like and what they look like on people. And there were a couple of Swedish ladies who were wearing these beautiful Fair Isle hooded cardigans. And I said, I of course went up to them and asked, what are those? What's the pattern? Where can I find it? And they explained that it was actually a Swedish designer, but they have it at Jamison's. So they said, go to Jamison's. So I went to Jamison's. I found out that the designer was Swedish and the hoodie design hasn't actually been translated into English yet. But I actually already happen to have that designer's book, Carina Olsson, and the book is Fair Isle Knitting. And I had been looking at the East Burra cardigan, which is one of the designs in the book, in this book, Fair Isle Knitting by Carina Olsson. But me being me, I wanted to pick out my own colors. And at, Jamison's in Shetland, they have all the colors. So luckily I was there when it wasn't too crowded, and one of the lovely staff members of Jamison's helped me pick out the colors. I decided to go with my own colorway that was more peachy and purple. I'm not going to take out all of the balls of yarn and go through them one by one, because there's a lot of different colors. But it was so nice to have someone who was an expert in all the different spindrift colors pull things out with me and make recommendations. It was such a good time. And on a per skein perspective, the yarn is a lot cheaper to purchase on site in Shetland than it is to buy in the United States. It is not cheaper though when you factor in that I flew there and stayed in hotels and had to pay for shipping at home. Every year there is a Shetland Wool Week annual that is put out by the organizers, and there's a lot of patterns within it as well as articles. Here is the article about Chris Morfitt's pictures that were on display in the Shetland Museum. One of the patterns that I really liked were these socks, which are the Skalva Socks by Freya Hutchinson. Freya is actually a teenager. And I just think these Scots are I just think these socks are adorable. Just, check out those heels. So I went to Jamieson and Smith to pick out the yarn for those socks. And of course, I wanted my own color combinations. Once again, it was so much fun to be there in Jamieson and Smith's with the beautiful yarns all displayed, all the colors that are there for you. And, I pulled together a blue and gray colorway. Sorry about the, whoops, one just escaped. So I pulled together, with help of a Jamieson and Smith staff member, these colors. And it was really, special to be pulling out the skeins, and then I had actually chosen a lighter gray, and the staff member said to me, I think this one's gonna be better for you. And I was like, yeah, she's right. So that was fun. Now, one of the things about traveling with a group is that you all see what each other are buying and you're like, oh, that's cool. I need to get that. And one of my favorite co-travelers, Lisa, was just singing the praises of the water bottles at Ninian's. And I was like, oh, geez, I need another water bottle. Like, what's so special about the water bottle? This is what is so special about the water bottle. They had these painted, insulated water bottles, and I just thought this was so beautiful. So Ninian's is a great gift store. And my mother was a botanical painter, and this made me think of her, and I just felt I needed to have it. On the very first day I arrived in Shetland, Amy and Heather arranged for us to go to Donna Smith's croft, where she has her long sooned yarns. I hope that's how you're supposed to pronounce it. And she has 100% Shetland wool that she hand dyes with natural dye stuffs. Gorgeous, beautiful colors. And, it was my first day in Shetland and I wasn't gonna shop that first day because I was thinking, I don't know what else there is, and I want to wait and so forth. And luckily, at the end of Shetland Wool Week, we were able to see Langsund again at the Burra tea. I purchased this beautiful skein of lace weight that is dyed with logwood and fustic. I just think the depth in this beautiful lilac colors, or it's kind of more lavender. I don't know. What shade of purple do you think this is? But any case, it's so pretty, and I knew I wanted to have some of Donna's yarn. I also bought a pattern for this cowl specifically to use for this yarn. And this is one of Donna Smith's designs. On the last Sunday of Shetland Wool Week, there was the Makers Market, where a lot of the smaller crofts and smaller yarn purveyors had booths and had things in. It was like a little mini wool festival that you could walk around and get stuff. And get stuff I did. I got a pair of mitten blockers made on Shetland by Paparwork. I also got some 100% Shetland wool. This is a collection of colors from Olsson Designs. Pardon the crinkling. I mean, I don't have enough purples and reds in my life, but I saw these colors and I was thinking, yep, these are for me. In fact, one of my fellow tour members, we were both going, sorry about the crinkles, we were both going through the, they had a whole bunch of collections of different colors and we were picking them up and egging each other on. Olsson Designs also had buttons. These are just some wooden buttons. Hopefully, there you go. I think these are really beautiful. I could just see these being really fun to put on a cardigan or a shirt or something. I also got buttons from the creative Croft. These are painted polymer clay. And I hope the camera is picking up the detail. I think these are just gorgeous. I hope they will work well on something. And I got another set. This is a warmer colorway. I just think these are so unique. These are from the creative Croft. The artist is Ivona Charleston. I just felt so inspired by all the beautiful Fair Isle knitting and color work I saw everywhere that I feel determined that I feel determined that I really want to make that a specialty of my knitting going forward. That doesn't mean that everything I'm going to knit going forward is going to be Fair Isle stranded work. It's just that that is something that I am super interested in developing a high proficiency in. So at Jamieson and Smith's, I picked up this book called The Joy of Color by Janine Bajus. I don't know how to pronounce her name. She is known as the Feral Knitter, however. And this is a book that is all about how to pick your own colors, how to think about design and so forth, and color theory. And I can't wait to get into it. To that end, I also at Jamieson's and Smith's picked up the shade card. These are all the shades of Jamieson and Smith's 2-ply jumper weight. They come in these hole punched cards. I feel like, when I was a kid, and I was one of those kids that had to have the 64 color Crayola crayon box because I had to have all the colors. Now, Jamieson's was not in stock with shade cards, but I figured if I was going to have J&S, I might as well have Jamieson's as well. So I ordered the Jamieson's of Shetland Spindrift shade card as well. I ordered it when I got home. So it is, I definitely can say that it makes a huge difference when you're picking yarn colors to have all of the colors in front of you, that you can actually touch and feel and look at the heathering. Here in the US, there are very few yarn shops that have all the colors. You can often order it online, but having the actual shade cards in front of you is so helpful. Let's talk projects, shall we? So first of all, what I am wearing is my finished Getaway cardigan. I am living in this finished object this fall. The wool is the yarn I bought in Ireland. It is Donegal Spinning Company yarn that Studio Donegal has on sale only, at least when I was there, only in their shop in Kilcar in Ireland. The Getaway pattern is by Alicia Plummer. This is so comfy. It is so warm. I wore it all over Shetland, and I'm now wearing it all over Arlington, Virginia. So warm and lovely. And I love that it's drop shoulder and comfy, but the sleeves are not too big. So anyway, I love it when you get to wear the things that you've made. The project I brought with me to work on while traveling in Scotland until I finished them was, of course, a pair of socks. These have already been through the wash twice, I think. These are the flannel socks. The pattern is by Alicia Plummer, same designer as my cardigan. I decided to use just one yarn. They're also designed for 2 colors, but I was using a self-striping yarn, and they have a nice texture through the leg and the instep, and they fit very nicely. Right before I headed to Shetland, I completed the Antidote mittens. These are one of these guys, a fingerless mitt with a thumb, and then there is a lid that pops over the fingers. I knit these in the yarns I had left over from my Kelborn Woolens project. So this is in Kelborn Woolens camper. When I wore these all over Shetland, they were very useful to be traveling in. And I was in Shetland, and somebody was saying, was admiring the color work. And I said, oh, but they're not made with Shetland yarn. And she said, oh dear, yes, I know that's not Shetland yarn. That was pretty funny. Anywho, these need a wash and to be reblocked. I wore these all over Scotland. They definitely served a purpose. Interesting comparison with, so this is Kelbourne Woolen's Camper, which is a finer yarn. I believe it is Highland yarn. It's South American, which probably has some bit of merino or fine sheep breed in them. And I also think this is worsted spun, not sure. Jameson and Smith's 2-ply jumper weight, which is also a fingering weight. This is my Toorie that I knit, is woolen spun and just is a lot hardier, wears much better, and to tell you the truth, is a little bit warmer. Love these mittens, but as you can see, they've got a little bit of fuzz on them and I need to reblock them. What is on my needles now? At the 2023 Maryland Sheep and Wool, I got a sweater's quantity of Jill Draper's mohunk. This is in Peridot, and this is chintz rose. And my original plan was to make a version of the drawing sweater by a Japanese designer. And when I got back from Shetland, I was thinking, all right, time to do some more color work. And I got out the pattern and I looked at it and was like, oh, this is a bit confusing and it's going to take me a lot of work to figure out how to get started on this. And I lost my nerve. I do love that design. But I was just thinking I am going to tackle something a little bit easier to understand, where there's less for me to have to figure out on my own. So to that end, I have also been a fan of Caitlin Hunter's Autumn Alpine sweater. So I repurposed the Jill Draper mohawk, and I have cast on for the Autumn Alpine sweater with that yarn. I am still working through the yoke. Hopefully you can see the pattern emerge. It's a little lumpy right now, but that will ease a lot with blocking. One thing I did discover after I swatched with this is that when I took a picture and then made it monochrome, the pattern in terms of how the contrast between the values work, the pattern wasn't showing up very well. Green and pink, of course, are completely different hues, but it will be interesting to see how well the pattern fully emerges once the sweater is complete. But I still think it is really pretty. This is, of course, more like Easter Alpine or Spring Alpine, but I am always really thrilled to use yarns that I have on hand in my collection, because I really have a lot of yarn now. I don't know if you have seen this meme that's going around on the internet. A friend of mine on Facebook posted it, and I was like, oh my God, that is going to be me very soon. Have you seen this? I think it's hilarious. I am pretty confident that it is an AI generated photograph, but it is, kind of a warning. Maybe? I don't know. This lady sure looks like fun, doesn't she? Of course, I'm also continuing to work on level 2 of my TKGA Master Hand Knitter certification. Things are going according to plan. I am not going to share more fully about that until level 2 is complete. The forthcoming episodes here on Yarn Journeys are going to be more about, well, my journeys and what I do with the yarn that I've gotten on them. So the next episode you're going to see will be all about my trip to the Scottish Highlands, particularly the Glencoe area and the Isle of Skye. There are lots of sheep and more yarny goodness to come. So please be sure to subscribe because you will not want to miss it. So that's all I've got for you today. I do thank you so much for spending time with me. If you've got any questions or thoughts about my trip to Shetland Wool Week, please do put a comment and I will be sure to get back to you. So thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.